If you're like me, sometimes your irons are on and sometimes your irons are off. And right now, I'm in a bit of a period where my irons are off. And I think that a big issue that I'm finding is that I'm pretty inconsistent throughout the bag. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a great drill that I love doing that really helps me throughout the entire bag. So essentially the premise of this drill is switching up clubs a little bit. So I'm going to start off with an 8-iron. Now I'm going to hit 5 consecutive shots with this 8-iron. I'm going to work on hitting a very standard ball flight across all of these shots. So for the sake of these 5 shots with my 8-iron, I want to hit a mid-trajectory shot that has a little bit of draw on it, or a right to left flight. Now throughout these 5 swings, I'm going to be focusing on a number of aspects of my golf swing. Not all at once, but swing by swing, I'm going through and I'm considering different things that I'm doing. So here I'm just working a little bit on my path. I want to be coming a little bit more shallow. So in my rounds of golf recently, I've found that I'm hitting a little bit of a drip fade when I'm trying to hit a draw. And I think that that is due to me being a little bit over the top. So in a couple of these swings, I want to work on shallowing out a little bit, having that path come in to out, which is what I'm working on right there. That's what I want the club to look like through impact. Now in this practice, it is imperative that every swing is intentional. This isn't just a ball beating drill where you're trying to get better by hitting 500 golf balls in an hour. No, that's not it at all. What we're really focusing on is intentional swings with intentional thoughts behind them. So for me, like I said, I'm working a little bit on swing plane. Another thing that I'm always working on is getting those hands through the ball, and look at my stance. You saw that exaggeration with my front foot, that left foot being in front of my right, closing down the stance a little bit. I'm also working on that. So with swing changes like this, it's important to consider all different kinds of things, but not at once. So there I did not hit a great shot, which again, we need to just understand that that's part of the process, but I'm being intentional in different aspects. So there's the shallowing aspect, and this is going to be my 5th shot with the 8-iron, and then this is where this drill really comes into play and why it's great. So here I'm going to have one last swing, go through my same pre-shot routine, and then commit to a nice baby draw right up there. Maybe overdrew that a little bit from the reaction. But after that 5th 8-iron shot, I'm going to switch to a different club. I'm going to a pitching wedge here, and I'm only going to hit 2 balls with the pitching wedge. But as you go through a range session, if you're only hitting 1 shot, you're not going to be adjusting from shot to shot like you do on the golf course. Very rarely do you hit the same exact shot 2 straight times. So with this pitching wedge, I'm working on getting a little bit steeper because you do want a little bit of a steeper angle of attack, and I'm going to stand a little bit closer to the ball. I still want to be balanced. I still want to be a little bit shallow, but I want to have that angle of attack come down a little bit of a bigger divot, and stance-wise, I am standing a little bit closer to this ball. Now you'll likely find that over time, as you make these switches in the middle of your practice session, these swings can get hard. If you get used to that 8-iron, switching to a pitching wedge, and I'm only having 2 swings, but it can get difficult. You may lose tempo right there. That ball was struck okay, but not perfect, probably flared out to the right a little bit. And then after 2 swings with that pitching wedge, we're gonna go back to the 8-iron for 5 more swings. Go back to the same principles, the same fundamentals, but you need to make those subtle adjustments in ball positioning in the stance. How far away you're standing from the golf ball. How steep do you want to be coming into that golf ball? There's a bunch of different things that need to change from swing to swing, and on the golf course, it's mandatory. You're going to hit a driver. You're not going to probably hit a driver that next shot. You're probably going to have some kind of mid-iron, maybe a wedge. The mechanics, the principles of that are very different. So you're going to want to be able to switch on the golf course. So why wouldn't you give yourself the ability to practice switching while you're on the practice range, dialing in and really trying to get these feels? I think it's a very good way to simulate on-course condition when you're on the driving range. There are so many golfers, and I hear plenty of them in my messages and just anecdotally that say, oh man, I've been hitting the ball so well in my practice. I'm hitting the ball so well on the range, but it's not translating to the golf course. Well, make it translate. Make the practice that you do on the driving range closely simulate what happens on the golf course. Go through a full pre-shot routine. Switch clubs after one another. have a very precise and detailed approach to where you're hitting your golf ball, where you're aligning, your target line, the wind. Think about all of those things. Even simulate pressure. Have certain games and drills that simulate pressure, because all of those things happen on the golf course and they are so rarely accounted for on the driving range. So that's a couple of great ways that you can allow the golf that you see on the driving range, the ball striking, the confidence. That's a great way to really make that transition pretty seamlessly into what you're doing on the golf course. Now, I got this drill from the Core Golf app, which, as you all know, if you've been watching these videos, they are a proud sponsor of Scratch Golf Tips, and I'm grateful to have them on board. I absolutely love the Core Golf app for not only giving me drills and great ideas of how I can improve, but it also allows me to track what I'm doing in my practice, so I can have a quantitative view of what I'm doing on the golf course, what I'm doing in my practice. Because if you don't have that visual, or you don't have that story of how your practice is progressing with numbers, how do you expect to get any better? So if you're looking to lower your handicap and shoot some better golf scores, and you want to help support the Scratch Golf Tips brand, please download the Core Golf app. It's the top link in the description, and you can get 15% off your yearly subscription when you use code SGT15. It's a great deal for a great product, and it's going to result in you playing some great golf. And thanks to the Core Golf app for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into the drill. So I just hit 5 more 8-iron shots, working on a lot of the same principles, and now we're switching to another club for 2 more shots, but this time we're going to switch to a long iron. I'm hitting a 6-iron here, so as you can see here, I have different rehearsals. I have to switch up my mentality, switch up my ball position, and even switch up my swing feels. Personally, with my long irons, that's my 6, 5, and 4-iron, I'm really trying to get a lot more shallow through the ball and have that ball be a little bit further up in the stance. I think that I've been trying to compress them a little bit too much, and the miss with those long irons is really been a lot of fat shots. And when you have 190 to 210 yards, chunking a shot 100 yards down the fairway or maybe into the rough can be pretty bad for the golf score. So here I've been working on my posture, standing a little bit further away from the golf ball, and nice balanced golf swings. I can tell that that was a good motion through the ball just because of my balance. You could see how I was able to hold my finish pretty steadily. Generally, that's a fairly good indication of that balance and that rhythm in the golf swing. So now we're going to go back to the 8-iron for 5 more shots. And now that we've already had 14 shots behind us, I'm going to go through my full pre-shot routine on these golf swings. I'm going to step back, pick my target line, step up to the ball, and again, guys, this is exactly how I would do it on the golf course. Maybe going through one extra rehearsal that I wouldn't on the golf course, but finding that line, committing to it, getting comfortable with my setup over the ball, and then firing through the ball. A little bit off balance there, nothing crazy, but looked like a pretty good strike in my book. Now, I think another big takeaway that can be learned from just watching this range session is the time that is taken between each shot. Now, if you want to just warm up before a round, I get going through balls a little bit faster. But when you're working on a meaningful change, working on actual things in your golf swing, working on things like the swing plane or your setup, which I'm doing now, don't just hit a ball every 10 seconds. It's important to take your time and go through the swings pretty slowly, because the slower that you can go through them, the more you can comprehend what you're doing. And after the swing, analyze. Look at the shot for a little while. Don't just hit it and go right down to the balls. Look at how the shot flies through the air. Now, you probably can't really get a great grasp on what that ball does upon landing because you're hitting into a driving range. You're not going to see the ball have any side spin. Your exact carry number might be a little bit off because it's a driving range and you're hitting driving range balls, but just be very conscious of everything that's going on. I think the best practice you can do is very intentional practice. For a lot of golfers, if you see them, on the range for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then they walk off, if you were to go up to them and ask them, hey, what were you just working on? I don't think many of them could give you a concrete answer. But for me, if somebody walked up to me after this session and said, hey, what were you working on? I would say I was working on shallowing out my swing plane and feeling more comfortable with my setup and alignment. And I did it slowly. I filmed this, obviously, for the sake of YouTube, so all you at home could see it. But I'm also filming most of my swings just so that I can look back at them from a qualitative sense and say, all right, here's where that went wrong. And as I say that, that was a pretty bad golf swing. I got very steep, probably chunked it 40 yards, and that was because that swing plane just came a little bit over the top. I pulled my hands down instead of completing my rotation. Now, if I wasn't filming and if I wasn't intentional about the work that I'm doing on the range, I probably wouldn't know what happened. And then I would make the same mistake again, unaware of what's going on, probably just generating more frustration in the golf swing. So always practice intentionally. Use Core Golf app, things of that nature to really dial in the way that you're looking at the game qualitatively, and you're going to see meaningful progress in your game. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section down below. Always willing to read and reply to the comments on these videos. As always, play well and take care.